If I could pick one movie that personifies everything that's wrong with Hollywood, with the entertainment industry, or, hell, the whole entire world, I would have to pick Red One. It took me 45 minutes to get to the theater, and instead of feeling excited or happy, I felt an all-encompassing and enveloping sense of depression and dread. And all of my senses were unfortunately proven correct, as I got to the theater to see Red One and had to sit through 2 hours of the holiday season's latest and greatest cinematic bomb. I got a little bit heated in it, and some text messages to my boyfriend who said, please don't be personally offended if the movie's bad. Well, you know what? I'm not personally offended. I'm offended on behalf of all of mankind. At least those of us who have a brain and a sense of taste. In Hollywood, I have an earnest request. Please stop trying to make Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson happen. It's never gonna happen. He plays the same character in every movie he's ever been in. That character has never been compelling, and I have to question if between filming the last Jumanji movie or Black Adam and filming this one, if he's undergone some sort of tragic accident, because his acting ability has gotten even worse, something I didn't even think was possible. Oh, forgive me. The actual thing that's been going on with him is he's been showing up to set up to 8 hours late and peeing in bottles and making interns dispose of said bottles. That is not a joke, that is reality, and we are officially beyond parody. It's a Christmas miracle I didn't walk out of this movie like other people in my viewing did. Let's talk about it. My name is Patrick, but my friends call me Pat. If you enjoy my videos, enjoy my content, like, comment on this video, gets it out to more people, and consider subscribing. I'm also on social media. Follow me on social media if that's your thing. Heart back by popular demand. That felt like a weak heart. That's a good heart. That's a symmetrical, very symmetrical. The plot of Red One: Santa has been kidnapped, and it's up to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Chris Evans to get him back. And Lucy Liu is there for some reason. She is in the movie. Every element of this film is either inconsistent or a complete mess. It can't pick a tone. Is it taking itself super seriously, or is it trying to be a funny buddy cop movie, playing on the fact that the premise is absolutely ridiculous? It tries to do both, and it accomplishes neither. The writing, which we'll certainly talk about later, trust me, has completely gone off the deep end. It's worse than the Reagan movie. It's worse than the Marvel style of superhero comic book movie of, that just happened. It fell right off of that cliff and into the fiery depths of writing hell. And don't get me started on the cinematography, which is a word that shouldn't even be in the same sentence as Red One. I realize inadvertently I have just done that very same thing. That is unfortunate. I complain a lot about how modern movies really just feel like they're all filmed in front of green screens, including Megalopolis. Comment if you want me to cover that one. But nowhere else is that more evident than in Red One. And they do such a bad job of it. That's what really gets me. Like, say what you will about Marvel movies, but the CGI is usually at least passable, if not sometimes good. Not at all the case here, despite the fact that their budgets are pretty comparable. And let me bring up again a point that really deserves to be hammered into the ground. This movie cost $250 million, and if you apply the formula that generally to get the total cost when you factor in advertising, you double that budget, this movie easily could have cost $500 million to create one of the worst films of the year, and something that was not enjoyable at any minute, at any second of the 2 hours I spent here. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. I can't be spiraling. It's so early in the video. If this movie does not do well at the box office, it could easily lose $300 million. But Amazon, however, is not daunted by the prospect of losing something that essentially amounts to 42 times the price the US government paid to buy the entire state of Alaska. Let me read you a particularly illustrative quote from Variety. Amazon MGM, however, cares about much more than box office grosses. The tech behemoth sees theatrical releases as a way to lure top talent and generate buzz for the streaming service Prime Video. The only buzz that this movie has generated, from my perspective, is the buzz of me deleting my Amazon account and telling my children that Christmas is canceled. Yes, I do have kids. I actually have a whole secret family. I'm currently getting ready to go on a date night right now. Whoa, you're really gonna go on a date smelling like that? I mean, I'm wearing deodorant. Deodorant? What are you, an 8th grade boy? It's time for you to elevate. Well, listen, I don't really understand how I'm supposed to use this. It's simple, man. They're fragrances. Use them to express yourself. Would you dress the same way going on a date versus going to work versus going to school versus going to Antarctica for 6 months in an overwinter work expedition? I didn't think so. So why should you smell the same? You know what? Good point, Suave Patrick. And now thanks to today's sponsor, Scentbird, you don't have to. Scentbird is a subscription service that will send you fragrances from designer brands every month for an affordable cost. And the best part, you can try different fragrances worry-free. A bottle of a high-end fragrance can run you anywhere from $300 to $500. So if you don't like it, you're gonna end up smelling like a cabbage for 9 whole months. Personally, I've really been enjoying Vanilla Sky by Skylar with notes of vanilla and cedar. It's been perfect as the weather gets colder. I also really like Scentbird's limited time fragrance, Moon Bear by Sanctuary. With lavender and cedar notes, it really makes me feel like I'm at the top of the food chain. Perfect for date night. I know I don't have any facial hair right now, but trust me, give me 3 months. Can grow it pretty quick. You know, spiritually, I relate a lot to bears. I'm afraid you're more of an otter, my friend. So if you want to start smelling your best, up your fragrance game, or start it entirely, scan the QR code right there, or use the code PAT, link below, to get 55% off at Scentbird. You can get your first fragrance for just half the price, that's only $8, and your next month is only going to be $16.95, so it's still super affordable. Again, if you want to try Scentbird, scan the QR code right there, or use the code PAT, link below in the description, to get 55% off at Scentbird. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video, and now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Red One is on the precipice of turning me into the Grinch, which, in retrospect, I will take that green bastard every single day and twice on Sundays over the CGI abominations that were present all throughout this film. But again, to center myself, to give myself some perspective, at least I'm not the production assistant who had to dispose of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's urine bottles. The movie was originally supposed to come out over a year ago, but due to delays caused by an inexperienced production staff as well as various personnel issues with the actors, it has caused it to be delayed until now. And I'll also add that a studio choosing to release a Christmas movie 2 weeks before Thanksgiving is insane. I'm not sure who they expect is going to want to see a Christmas movie now, November 15th and beyond, but whatever, they're choosing not to release on Thanksgiving because they think they're going to be beaten by Wicked, even though everyone in Wicked forgot how lighting works, but then again, so did everybody in this movie. The personnel issues that I've alluded to, the star of the movie routinely showing up to set 8 hours late. And look, maybe you could get away with this if you were Daniel Day-Lewis, Denzel Washington, Tom Hanks, like an actually talented master once-in-a-generation acting talent. People would be able to accept that you're making their lives noticeably worse because you can't be remotely punctual, but you're The Rock. You're The Rock. Your idea of acting is trying to eye-fuck the camera, jumping off a building, and then saying a cutesy one-liner. And seriously, the time really gets me. It's not as if he was 3 hours late, 4 hours late, something that could maybe be explained, but to be up to 8 hours late, like, is he nocturnal? Is he a vigilante secretly fighting crime? Although he might actually be a super villain on account of the whole urine thing. Maybe he's using it to fight the Green Lantern, and if you don't know anything about the Green Lantern, that joke probably doesn't make any sense, just like it doesn't make any sense that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is peeing in Evian bottles. If he's not in his trailer, he has a specifically made pee tent that he'll go into the tent and pee in the bottles and then make an intern dispose of them. That has been reported, and that is just, I don't know if there is an explanation for that. I can't even begin to speculate what would cause anybody, let alone an A-list celebrity actor, to participate in behavior that I could best describe as being something that a crusty basement dweller would do. So I'll leave it to you in the comments to speculate, or just in your nightmares, maybe. All told, with those production difficulties and some terrible forethought, the budget of Red One ballooned to $250 million, and Amazon reportedly wants to start a whole Santa cinematic universe. God help us all. It's time to break down the plot. From the very first frame of the movie, we get into the identity crisis that will permeate the entire experience. The movie opens with the song "Here Comes Santa Claus," which for those of us who celebrate Christmas will evoke nostalgia, childhood memories, and happiness. The song plays until we meet our main character, Potato Famine O'Kennedy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. John Irishman. No. Jack O'Reilly, yes. Played by Chris Evans. As the nostalgic song comes to an abrupt stop, we see that his cousins are paying him with candy for him to locate where the presents are and to tell them that Santa isn't real. We're seeing that Jack O'Reilly is a classic bad kid, and right away I have several notes. We're on scene 1 and I already have multiple things to say. This scene, one of maybe the few times in the entire movie that they're actually shooting on location instead of in front of a giant green screen, is completely unnecessary. The scene establishes nothing about Jack's character that we don't immediately see repeated in the next scene, where we learn that he's an asshole. Okay, great. We kind of already knew that from the first scene. We knew he's a bad kid. He's literally eating Santa's cookies and drinking the milk. And then in the very next scene, he's stealing somebody's coffee, stealing somebody's newspaper, breaking into a laboratory after starting a fire and stealing data, and then literally stealing candy from a baby. So the first scene from his childhood establishes effectively nothing. Now, I agree, it's important that we do see him as a child, but what about maybe one year he doesn't get anything for Christmas? He's on the naughty list. He doesn't have a dad. We see him alone on Christmas Day. Right away, you're going to have the audience feeling sympathetic for Jack O'Reilly as a character, which is something that the audience never really, in my opinion, is going to truly feel, beyond the fact that Chris Evans is kind of a likable, puckish rogue character, kind of playing the character he played in Knives Out in this movie, which is kind of likable even though you know he's a bit of a dick. But if we start the movie with him at a low point, maybe having conflicted reasons for actually wanting to save Christmas and save Santa, which we know he's going to have to eventually anyway, and realizing why he has fears of being a father, then his entire character arc is going to be so much better because, okay, I'm wasting my time and energy, aren't I? Just saying, his entire character arc is about him being a better father to the kid that we're going to eventually learn he has. It'd be nice if we could actually, you know, write scenes with that purpose in mind, but what do I know? And this is besides the point, but since we're having fun, the Santa thing. We as a society do it, and it's weird. Let's talk about it. Like, we just essentially permit everybody to collectively lie to every single child until they're about 8, or in Trump's eyes, 7, because at 7 it's marginal, right? Why do we do that? Like, we just lie to everybody and say, okay, you know, there's a fat guy who gives you presents and you leave out cookies for him. Maybe we should leave Santa some salad. Although in this movie, Santa is actually very healthy. That is a big point of contention. So this Santa, fine, but traditional Santa absolutely needs a salad and maybe some Ozempic. Leave Ozempic out for Santa this year, kids. He's real if you're watching this, and you shouldn't be watching this. Go and play outside, please. Get off the internet.
Run for it, Charlie! Run straight home and don't stop till you get there!
It'd be really funny to me if there are 8-year-olds who are thinking like, oh, I gotta watch My Friends Call Me Pat. I have to see how Red One's gonna perform at the box office. Internationally, it's doing okay, kid. Anyways, in the world of Red One, there's no need to stress about Yuletide morality because Santa is real, and there are a lot of other things that are also mythological and are also real, but don't worry, we'll address the terrible world building in just a few minutes. But yeah, first few scenes, Jack is a terrible human being, yada yada yada. He breaks into a laboratory to steal some data to fund his gambling addiction, and he fully has a bookie. Like, someone needs to tell this guy, online gambling is
legal.
Jack, you can just put in a credit card and piss away your money to your heart's content. Well, you know, unless you're doing a parlay, Shohei Ohtani over 2 bases, Freddie Freeman hit, Miguel Rojas hit. That's free money. That's free money right there. And it's here we're introduced to Santa, played by J.K. Simmons, and Callum Drift, which sounds like a cross between Disney-era Star Wars and ChatGPT, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm going to say a lot of very negative things about his performance throughout this video, so just to add a compliment, I think he's a pretty good wrestler, and he should probably go back to that. See? I just did a compliment sandwich. Now this particular compliment sandwich is going to be a little bit light on the fillings and have the largest buns you could possibly imagine. Santa's seeing kids at the mall, and Callum, who is called Cal for the purposes of this movie, Cal is just kind of watching him, and right away you can tell that J.K. Simmons is going to be the only enjoyable performance in this entire movie. Maybe that's because he's really the only actor of any prestige and legitimacy they got for the cast of this sordid cinematic enterprise. But even the great J.K. Simmons is somewhat constrained by the terrible writing. Like, as they're leaving the mall, he says something to the effect of, "I love coming to Philadelphia. Do we have time to stop for a cheesesteak?" Which is such a J.D. Vance line of dialogue to say.
Just everything, yeah, it'll be a lot of glaze, cinnamon rolls, just
Whatever it says.
He may be the vice president, but he is always going to be weird. And maybe this is obvious if you've seen the trailer or even just a 10-second clip of any of it at any point on any social media. The writing is going to completely drag this film to the depths of Lake Superior. I don't even necessarily hate the premise of Red 1 of Santa being kidnapped, and then it's kind of like an action comedy, even though this film does neither the action nor the comedy well, to rescue him. And the plot of Santa actually being kidnapped is literally the same as one of my favorite animated specials ever, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. Except that special did not cost essentially what is roughly the entire GDP of the island nation of Palau to make. But speaking of an island tropical nation, there was an incredibly weird tropical musical number in Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer when they're singing about the joys of Grandma suing Santa.
Grandpa's gonna sue the pants off of Santa. That's what Grandpa's gonna do. Woo-hoo!
Comment below if you want me to cover that special. It is objectively bad, but I love it so much. I love it. And add Cousin Mel to the list of very camp villains who are secretly turning the kids gay. Again, it's not the schools, it's Food Network and Cousin Mel.
Give it to me like...
So could an action film about Santa being kidnapped actually work? As I'm saying it out loud, I'm understanding maybe the difficulties inherent to this premise, but whatever. It's almost certain that it could be done better than Red 1, and certainly certain that it could be done cheaper. And as I've noted a little bit, the CGI in this movie is absolutely abysmal. It is some of the worst I've ever seen that is not just like early 90s terrible, how is this on your screen? Because this is done with modern technology, and yet it still looks so fucking bad. I saw this movie in a Dolby theater, theoretically one of the nicest screens that anybody will ever watch this movie on in like a mass commercial setting. So it's as good as it's going to look. And in every scene that is predominantly CGI, mostly referring to large animated set pieces, but also just a lot of scenes when they clearly just didn't want to pay somebody to design a room that actually existed, all of those scenes are blurry. And it is noticeably blurry. And when you first see the reindeer and you notice they're a little blurry, you're like, okay, well, maybe it's an issue with the lighting, even though it's all computer animated. They could have made the lighting whatever they wanted to be. Okay, maybe it's just a one-time mistake. Then you fly into the North Pole, and it is blurry. It literally looks like you need glasses, and you're thinking like, okay, well, maybe that's just an issue with the screen. No, because it's then going to cut to Santa and Cal in the sleigh, and it's crystal clear. Like, because the screen is great, so these actors who are real and being filmed with a real camera look beautiful, and everything else looks terrible and blurry, and it's just like, oh my god, we've fallen so far. And I think the reindeer are particularly indefensible, as much as I can complain about how the North Pole looks like shit, which is a valid complaint, but it's really damning when Elf, a movie that came out 20 years ago, has reindeer that actually look better than this movie, supposedly a major blockbuster. Like, this film should look stunning, and instead it's stunning but bad. It should be stunning parentheses good, instead it's stunning parentheses bad. Anyways, Santa is being escorted by the Air Force, which raises more questions, but then he teleports to the North Pole. Santa also rides in a car to get to the airport, which I would just like to complain about. This is purely a subjective thing on my behalf. Santa shouldn't be in a car. Right? Like, tell me if I'm wrong, but that's just like, it doesn't feel right. It'd be the same if I saw Santa, like, using TikTok or filing out a W-2 on TurboTax. Like, Santa is like a vintage guy. He shouldn't be doing this, like, he shouldn't be riding in a Suburban. He should be riding in, like, some magical horse-drawn carriage. It's just, that put a sour taste in my mouth right away. And let's collect ourselves here. Let's collect ourselves. We got a lot of movie to go. We then see that Jack sells the unspecified data and then makes another terrible sports bet. And then we go back to the North Pole where we see Mrs. Claus, Mr. Claus, or Santa. Mr. Claus would be the formal New York Times way to address him. We see them talk to Cal about the difficulties inherent to Christmas. And what I'm about to say next is really sad. The exterior of my apartment smells like garbage 6 days of the week. Okay, no, about the movie. The only interesting part of this movie are the 30 seconds where they're talking about the logistical hurdles and interpersonal issues between people working in the North Pole. They're talking about how the head of the ribbons department is getting too stressed and is annoying other people, and it's really impacting the gift department, but they can't fire the head of the ribbon department because he's too passionate. And if that was the movie, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. A Succession-esque drama about the internal logistics of planning Christmas with the interpersonal issues and the fighting and the bickering would be infinitely better than this pathetic excuse for cinema, and you could do it for maybe about 1/10 of the budget. Like, I want to see Elf Jeremy Strong accidentally killing the gingerbread man and then yelling at everybody about the demand for Tinker Toys and his hostile takeover of the South Pole. Like, I need that, and I need it yesterday. Cal and Santa then go to Santa's room, a totally real room that really exists in our real world. And Cal tells Santa that he's going to be quitting because he feels he's lost the magic. He's upset that, for the first time in history, more people are on the naughty list than the nice list. Cal then leaves for like 2 seconds, and then, oh no, Santa gets kidnapped by a bunch of mysterious rogue winter soldiers. And then there's a whole chase scene featuring Cal jumping off of buildings onto things, which should probably just turn him into goo, but whatever. It reminded me a lot of his other movie where he's jumping off of a skyscraper and jumping down the skyscraper. And when I wrote that joke, I had to Google what the name of the movie was. Turns out the name of the movie was just Skyscraper. So I think that should tell you everything you need to know, not just about that film, but about most of The Rock's entire discography. Videography? Body of work? His oeuvre? Je ne sais pas. And again, I may have gotten a 2 on my AP Physics exam, but there are multiple instances in this movie where Chris Evans, especially because he's a human, we don't ever technically really know what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's character, what species he is. At one point, Chris Evans says, "You're not human?" And then he's like, "Do I look human?" And yes, you do. But whatever, there are multiple instances throughout the entire film where they both should have been vaporized into a red mist. But whatever. Let's keep on trucking. It's revealed that the data that Jack stole earlier was the data that was used to track down Santa Claus, so Cal and a bunch of other people with the North Pole have to go track him down. And it's around here we learn that Jack is a deadbeat father. When he's on the phone with the mother of his children, played by Mary Elizabeth Ellis, the waitress of It's Always Sunny fame, he just randomly starts talking in an accent that I can only describe as the "Your Cousins from Boston" commercial accent.
Your cousin from Boston.
His son Dylan desperately wants him to be in his life, but because of Jack's own underdeveloped struggles with parenting and his own father, he is unable to do so. And then we see what is maybe the only good action sequence in the entire film, when Jack goes back to his apartment. Jack goes back, that kind of rhymes. Cut that. Can you cut that? Oh no, you're keeping it in. Okay. When he goes back to his apartment, he fights like 10 guys, and it's actually like a pretty good scene. Like, it's a little bit over the top, but it has a lot of long shots to get a good scope of the room. The action's pretty fun. Like, it's grounded, but it's cool. Like, honestly, they did a good job with that one. Every other action sequence in the movie is pretty terrible, mostly because they start including the Rock's character, who just kind of Ant-Mans, but he only Ant-Mans, like, smaller. He never, like, becomes just giant. He only goes small. So the movie then kind of just expects me to take things seriously when I see, like, a 3-foot tall The Rock beating someone up, which I just can't. But this sequence naturally, fortunately, avoids all of that. Anyway, just as he thinks he's about to escape, he opens a door, which is made obvious by the camera angle what's about to happen, but, you know, I'm not going to complain about that too much. But he opens the door, and Lucy Liu zaps him and captures him. Lucy Liu, who apparently her character name is Zoe, she is the director of the Mythological Creature Protection Organization, and she reveals to Jack that mythological creatures are real, and there's some bad stuff going on. And this point is accentuated by a nice reference to the Headless Horseman, which, as somebody who is from upstate New York, I appreciated that. We as a society would be doing a lot better if we paid a little bit more respect to Ichabod Crane and the himbo icon of the Headless Horseman. But this sequence, including Jack being the subject of some enhanced interrogation, aka torture, George Bush, by a giant polar bear, really bring up two big issues I have with the movie in general. The first is the writing, which can mostly be kind of ignored throughout the film as just being mediocre, but in scenes like this rears its ugly head. This is just going to happen when you're writing your dialogue to produce funny one-liners and quips rather than make your characters sound like actual people. Like, it makes sense for Jack to be shocked by this new world that he's in, but he just comes off with the lines of dialogue as just an oafish buffoon. The second, larger problem is the world building, which, to put it charitably, is incredibly inconsistent throughout the runtime. The movie makes it a point to say that the existence of Santa has been kept a closely guarded secret for hundreds of years, yet there are so many instances when supernatural, mythological, magical, whatever things happen in the film that would have gone viral on social media multiple times over. The villain at one point summons a giant storm, causing an ice cream truck to emerge from the ocean and have 3 gigantic evil snowmen come fight everybody. You're telling me that not a single person got a brief clip of it on their phone that they could then upload to social media? Like, if just one of the things that happens in this movie, like, The Rock routinely makes a Hot Wheel into a giant car. You're telling me no one has seen that? Or do people accept that magic is real, but just for some reason think, okay, well, no, that whole Santa thing, these unexplained presents underneath the tree, that can't be magic. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's actually the same issue that the Harry Potter series has, because we're being asked to suspend our disbelief and know that mortals wouldn't realize there's a bunch of hormonal teenagers fighting to save the world from Voldemort. Like, we're just expected not to question that. But at least J.K. Rowling had the decency to put up at least half-assed explanations as to why this wouldn't be the case. There's not even any attempt to justify the world that Red One supposedly takes place in, which is just an interesting choice if you're trying to truly start a cinematic universe out of this movie. So good luck with that, guys. Although, you know, to give some credit to Red One where it's due, there was fortunately, to my knowledge, no transphobia and no instances of the only Asian character being named Cho Chang, so credit to you guys where it's due. Although my personal favorite under-the-radar stereotype in the Harry Potter series that J.K. Rowling used was the fact that the only Irish character is the student who's coincidentally always blowing things up. As it happens in all buddy cop movies, Cal and Jack team up unwillingly to go find Santa, starting in Aruba, aided by the fact that all toy stores have portals to all the other toy stores in the world, so they must have really taken those mall closures particularly to heart. And they also, again, you know, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's character has a gun that can make cars big, and yeah, sure, okay.
I just want to say hi, Bernie.
Yeah, good. Okay.
My disbelief has not just been suspended, it has been tied up, captured, and thrown in the back of an Amazon MGM van where it cannot even get a bathroom break. It has to pee in the same bottles as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But they eventually find the person who hired Jack, ultimately getting the data that was used to kidnap Santa, played by Nick Kroll. And Nick Kroll is just always a delight. Maybe the only other moment in the movie that I actually enjoyed was after Cal beats up all of his bodyguards and wants to go talk to him. The only thing Nick Kroll's character is concerned about is, like, getting boba for the hot women who he's on a date with. Which, like, you know, maybe not the best decision. No offense to Aruba, but I'm struggling to imagine that there's good boba in Aruba. There's barely good boba in Boston. I don't know what it's like in Aruba, but I feel for you, Nick Kroll. And I feel for your women, and I hope they get good boba. I doubt it, though. But we won't ever get the opportunity to see that because he is then possessed by the movie's villain, Gryla, played by Kiernan Shipka, aka Sally Draper from Mad Men. She's back. She was also in Longlegs. I did not see that, but she's getting roles. So happy for her. Gryla wants to punish all the naughty people in the world, which is something that Santa doesn't want to do. Okay, we're talking about punishment. I think as far as evil villain motivations go, this is one of the most cliche and the least interesting. It's basically just diet Thanos, although at least in Thanos' case, Marvel had the decency to show us a flashback of the purple dude's planet getting completely decimated, so you could kind of understand where he was coming from, even if it was mostly nonsensical. But Gryla just hates people who are late among other infractions that are listed, which really makes me wonder if this was in the original script or if there was just a point in production where everybody on the writing staff was just so annoyed by Dwayne Johnson's behavior. They were like, we're going to add that, we're going to add that in, we're going to add that in. Because she says, among other things, she wants to punish anybody who's ever lied or has ever been rude, which completely makes sense. But then she adds people who have ever been late, which, like, I feel like that's not quite as bad, but then when you consider that one of the stars of the movie was routinely 8 hours late, suddenly, I think I might be rooting for Gryla. I think I might be standing Gryla. But she sends some evil snowmen to go kill Cal and Jack, which doesn't work because once they pluck the carrot, the snowmen die, but Nick Kroll's character was frozen, so that lead is effectively dead. Seeing that there are no other choices, they decide to go talk to Santa's adopted half-brother, Krampus. Ta-da! And I think it's cool that they involved Krampus, but when I heard, like, evil Santa-esque person in Central Europe, I was thinking Belschnickel, I'm not gonna lie, and the Office controversy aside, that is what he actually looks like, so I kind of, now that I'm saying it out loud, I very much understand their decision to snub Belschnickel in favor of Krampus. But they go through a portal in a graveyard to enter Krampus's Shadow Kingdom, which mercifully, because of the shadows, is quite dark. You can almost forget how terrible the CGI is. Jack steals some gold that was just lying out there, despite being told by Cal to touch literally nothing, and then they're both thrown in the dungeon. And then Cal hits Jack with the whole speech of like, you know, I'm not disappointed in you because I didn't expect anything from you at all. You're a Channel 4 naughty lister or whatever it's called. And in my head, I'm thinking, like, this is far too early for an all is lost moment, and then I'm also thinking, like, wow, this is so tremendously unsubtle, I feel like I've been bludgeoned with a giant club. But they then go to meet Krampus, who's not very receptive to their demands, so to win his freedom, Cal has to participate in a game of, like, the slap-off game, which, if you're not familiar with, I'll show you a clip of right here. You know, I spend a decent amount of time watching both competitive eating and baseball, and they both waste my time in my life, but I'm appreciative that at least I don't find enjoyment out of watching a bunch of grown men slap each other. It's just not my thing.
Is my face still there?
But with that scene in the movie, I guess there's now 2 rocks who have been the subject of a particularly devastating slap.
Oh, wow! Wow!
So Jack and Cal escape from Krampus's kingdom, but it's around this point that Gryla is about to implement her evil plan of sending trapped snow globes to everybody around the world that when they're opened and shaken, they are put into a snow globe prison. And it doesn't even work at first. Like, we get a scene where it's very heavily set up. Like, this weapon is set up to be incredibly, like, foreboding and dangerous. So when we see it tested on a normal person for the first time, the expectations are very high. And he's just, like, comically evil. Like, he's on the phone saying, I don't have time to get medicine for my grandma. Tell her to take the bus. And he's parked in a handicap parking lot. So he gets the snow globe and he shakes it and then he just, like, disappears, which was so anticlimactic. Like, if he were to turn into goop, or if he were to, like, I don't know, be, like, crucified or something, then maybe the stakes would be intensified a little bit. But that might be a little too dark for a holiday movie. Wait, no. Christmas! What are we even celebrating with Christmas? Jesus, right? So crucifixion, like, I don't know. Okay. Don't take my advice on that. Take a lot of my other advice I've given you. Don't follow that one. Actually, I'm pretty sure Christmas is, like, the birth and Easter's the death. My Sunday school teacher is probably pretty mad at me right now. But yeah, Grylo's on the verge of implementing her evil plan and stops Cal and Jack with a giant piano in the middle of the road playing Silent Night with one of the snow globes as a gift. And then right around that point, Dylan calls Jack, and he's basically like, oh, Dad, I didn't even want you to come to the recital, but I actually did. Like, why aren't you here? You're never here. Again, this movie is about as subtle as, like, one of those people with, like, a studio amp yelling at you about Jesus or whatever on the side of the street.
If you buy her one margarita, she will spread her legs!
But Dylan shakes the snow globe and disappears, so Jack follows suit, and he also disappears, and they both end up trapped. They're trapped in Gryla's lair. They're about 4 inches tall in snow globes on her shelf, and we see just this absolute insane POV shot of like Gryla and her minions to a lesser extent look giant, and it really makes me wonder if this is an instance of watching the writer's barely disguised fetish or not, because why did they need to be small? Couldn't they just be like normal human size? But let's not dwell on that. But actually, Jack being captured by Gryla is really the only way that Cal and Zoe are ultimately able to find where Gryla and Santa actually are. Because there's a tracking chip inside of Jack. But if he had never gotten captured, they would have had effectively no leads. But since they're now stuck in the snow globe jail, Jack tearfully admits to his son that he's going to be a better father going forward. And that's pretty much all it takes. Suddenly, the snow globes start cracking and glowing, and they both escape out of the snow globes, and they're just transported there, as if by magic. Causes one to wonder how effective these snow globe prisons are going to be if it takes about 45 seconds of half-assed apologizing to make up for 30 years of wrongdoing, but I digress. This actually reminds me of in Sing, when the dad gorilla sees his son on the TV when he's in prison and he breaks out of prison. By the way, when that scene comes up every so often on social media, there are people on Twitter saying, actually, it would be better if the dad had to stay in jail and you could really just nail down the fact that his failures of a father have caused his family to suffer. And I'm thinking like, Jesus Christ, this is a kid's movie. This is a kid's jukebox musical. Have a happy ending for the kids. Like, that's a crazy thing to think. There's no shortage of depressing things that we have to read or watch as children, like Where the Red Fern Grows, which is an entire book about how this poor guy gets 2 dogs, and then they both die at the end. Like, let the Sing gorilla go see his child. Oh my gosh. Using Jack's tracking chip, Zoe and Cal find him and his son, and then they realize that Gryla is going to do the Santa flight on her own and distribute the prison snow globes to everybody around the world. Gryla also has captured Santa on the sleigh because the sleigh is powered by Santa, and then we get another whole action set piece for the climax. It's not good. It's not good. Gryla, despite being given multiple opportunities to just fling Cal and Jack to their certain deaths off of the sleigh or off of the bridge where they're fighting, just doesn't. And eventually she is taken off the bridge and then kind of comes back as a giant, like, 50-foot Shadows of Colossus-esque monster. And then Krampus shows up, saving the day temporarily, and then he gets beaten. But then the real person who saves the day is Santa, who wakes up because he's basically been sleeping for the past hour and 45 minutes, and then his reindeer come in and defeat Gryla, and she's trapped in a snow globe, and it's a happy ending. And then Dylan and Jack accompany Santa on his flight around the world. And remember, kids, a lifetime of bad parenting can be quickly overshadowed if you can locate where Santa is, save his life, and then accompany him on his magic sleigh. A lot of good life lessons in Red One. We can't fault them for that. And, you know, I actually like the ending. The ending's nice. I like Christmas. Sue me. I'm not a Grinch at heart. They saved Christmas. It's nice. And Santa actually goes into an apartment, which I don't think I've ever seen depicted in media, which I've always, you know, not that I've always wondered about because I know Santa isn't real. Knock on wood.
You just made the list!
And I want to say that I liked the ending because they really kind of almost ruin it entirely with the final 2 lines of the movie, which I'll now read to you verbatim. Jack asks, "Did we just save Christmas?" Causing Cal to respond, "I think we just saved Christmas." Lines that elicited laughter in my theater, and I sincerely hope that's not what they were going for, but those lines are so ridiculous that that's what they did. I will say there were roughly about a dozen moments like that that's elicited similar levels of disgust from me in terms of just the absolutely abysmal writing quality in this film. Cal punches someone in the face and then says, "Good tidings." Cal says, "We have to open it," talking about the obviously evil snow globe present, like the most obvious trap in the world. Jack says, "Do we have to open it?" Cal says, "We have to open it." That doesn't even really make sense. And then one other thing I've written down here, Gryla says, "I'm going to give them something to fear." A line that is just so moronic, it really caused me to lose brain cells. This movie struggles in so many areas because all of the characters sound like they're Buzz Lightyear toys with 10 pre-programmed phrases that are dropped in the middle middle of scenes without any context or any situational awareness. And no, I'm not talking about the like $5,000 Buzz Lightyear toy that's specifically marketed to any of the engineers that survived the Twitter purges and Elon Musk's hell Twitter. I'm talking about the $30 Buzz Lightyear toy that I had that I was cool with, even though the phrases were repetitive because the wings worked. The other major issue Red One has, as I've pointed out before, is it has no consistent tone. It can't tell if it wants to be serious, and at many points it tries to be, with dramatic music playing as The Rock talks about how there's a candy cane shortage, or some other bit of asinine bullshit. And it doesn't know if it wants to be a comedy, with Jack talking about how the naughty list is insane and how he's a level 4 naughty lister or whatever.
Are you telling me this clown is a level 4 naughty lister? A level 4 naughty lister? Oh, is that funny to you?
And it's fine to try to do both. Obviously, action comedy is a pretty popular genre, but it takes a lot more skill than you would think to make your comedic beats hit and to also make your drama, your action, your stakes, to make those beats hit as well. So you really, if you don't have the skill to do that, you should pick one and try to stick with it. But this movie tried to do both, and it failed in accomplishing either. Is this film uniquely terrible? No, not really. It's just kind of your bog standard garden variety form of terrible. A modern action movie with no heart, no craft, hoping to sell tickets purely because the people who are in the movie are somewhat famous and have been in other big movies. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll lose $300 million. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And I do on some level commend Hollywood for taking a chance on this movie for something that is not an established intellectual property and isn't a sequel, even if apparently they want to make a whole cinematic universe out of it. So 1 step forward, 5 steps back, but have some credit for the 1 step forward, I guess. But yeah, in my view, this movie was just a complete miss. It wasn't fun to watch. It wasn't enjoyable. On a technical level, there's so much wrong with it. It looks like trash. The writing is trash. The performances are all dragged down by an albatross named The Rock. I'm officially putting Dwayne The Rock Johnson on leading man probation duty. Go learn how to be a goofy side character, or, you know, just take some fucking acting classes and then come back. Then you can film another terrible Jumanji movie that spits on the grave of Robin Williams. If you're looking for something good to watch this holiday season, I recommend literally anything else. I could have spent my afternoon watching A Christmas Story, Christmas Vacation, The Holdovers, but instead I spent it watching this movie because I think you all secretly like to enjoy me suffering. But that's fine, you know, happy to oblige. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring the video. If you want to start smelling your best, up your fragrance game, or get it started entirely, use the QR code right there, or use the code PAT, link below in the description, and get your first fragrance for only $8, and your next month for only $16.95. Super affordable. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps get this video out to more people, and I super duper appreciate it. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment. Remember, I do read every one of them. Did this movie deserve a $250 million budget? What would you do with $250 million? I'm assuming some crazy and incredible things. I would just make a better movie. But yeah, The Rock, do we like him? Do we not like him? Lots of things to discuss. But as always, my name is Patrick, but my friends call me Pat, and I will see you for the next one.